Hey everybody, it's David. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been traveling quite a bit. Got couple thousand miles on the car now. Also took some time off and just got in from the water. Got in a little early today, so I wanted to jump on here and let y'all know that I'm catching up. While we were traveling, I went back and listened to this episode again that you're fixing to hear. It's got a lot of useful intel on it, and I've been reminded of some of the things that I should be doing or should be using at this time of the year that I just haven't thought of because there's just so much going on. And you kind of get stuck in that rut, which I've talked about a million times probably on this thing. But anyway, this one's got some useful intel and it's fun. It was a fun to record and it's worth a second or third listen. I probably listened to it 4 or 5 times through the editing and through the different procedures that we had to go through to make sure that these things sound somewhat presentable. But I'll be back we'll be back in a couple of weeks here with new episodes. I already got some in the hopper that I did before we took off. So if you could just take a listen to this one, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Other than that, see you next time. Thanks. Thanks for joining us for this episode. Feel free to share with your friends and your fishing partners. Subscribe or follow so that you'll be the first to know when an episode drops. And if you find value in the podcast, please drop by the Southeastern Fly store, explore the merch that makes the Southeastern Fly podcast. Also, if you need information about fishing techniques, flies, fly tying gear, etc., remember the fly fishing coaching sessions are open and there are a few time slots available. That's live video coaching. It's best for new anglers and intermediate anglers. Coaching has already helped students become more skilled fly anglers. If you need references from past students, just let me know and I'll ship them to you via email. So who are we talking to today and what are we talking about? So our guest today from this Wisdom from the Guides episode, the first guest is a guide who grew up here in Middle Tennessee, fished here, then moved to Upper East Tennessee and fished there, currently resides in Victor, Idaho. He's been guiding full-time for 5 years. He is now in his 8th season working with World Cast. Please welcome Will Ezell.
Good to see everybody, hear everybody.
So what's the weather like in Victor tonight?
We're going to get down to single digits. It'll be quite cold. Maybe some freezing fog moving in, which will be nasty, but that's what ice scrapers are for.
Little information on the South. I rented a car one time and had to go up north to Illinois. Got up there, spent the night in the hotel, came back out the next morning, no ice scraper in the car.
Oh.
Yeah. So we don't really do ice scrapers down here. All right. So this is a Wisdom from the Guides episode. So it wouldn't be complete without us bringing in another guide here. This guy followed the same path as Will with just a few deviations. Our second guest also grew up in Middle Tennessee, fished here, moved to Upper Tennessee, fished there, currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, and Victor, Idaho. He's also been guiding with World Cast, is now in his 7th season. Please welcome back to the podcast, Will's brother, Eric Ezell. Eric, thanks for stopping back by.
Good to see you again, David.
I believe this episode is going to be helpful to experienced anglers all the way to new fly anglers who want to try something different. This episode is a Wisdom from the Guides episode, like I said, and it's called Fishin Dirty. Now get your minds out of the gutter. Just the flies are dirty. Don't tell your friends you're using dirty flies because they won't tell you they're using dirty flies. It's just better left unsaid, don't y'all think?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So how did the topic for this episode originate? Once upon a time in a smaller river in Middle Tennessee. I'm kidding. Well, actually, that's partly true. So just a few weeks ago, Eric and I got together and we brought Lila, who is Eric's girlfriend. Is she your fiance?
She will be soon.
Okay.
So as long as she says yes.
Yes. Anyway,
I don't know who would say yes to
you. Brotherly love. Anyway, me, Eric, and Lila were out on the boat, and we started. As always, we run through our flies. Of course, I don't deviate too much. Eric was steady in the back of the boat, changing flies, and Lila was steady in the front of the boat, catching fish. And he threw on this mop fly. I got another friend, Pat, who fishes mop flies a whole lot. And whenever Eric tied on the mop fly, I said, I've never caught anything on a mop fly other than a white one during the shad kill. And, you could tie on a cigarette during the shad kill. And probably catch fish. Eric ties this thing on. I said, and Pat's even given me some, and I just can't catch anything on it. I literally will. The first cast, he throws this thing out there in some pretty heavy water and just scarfs up a nice 16, 17-inch rainbow, full colors, everything. I mean, we saw the whole thing. The mop hadn't even sunk yet. It was down under the water, maybe 6 inches, something like that. So
That's
anyway,
beautiful.
Yeah, right. So anyway, right after that, I got up and took Eric's rod away from him and started fishing the mop fly. Had a little bit of luck myself, but anyway. So we're gonna devote this episode to Fishin' Dirty, and hey, don't take it serious. If this gives you heartburn, you probably shouldn't listen to the whole thing because it's all about dirty flies. The first one, since we're talking about mops, guys, why don't we just go on and hit that? Like I said, I don't really fish them much. I happened to tie some the next day after we fished, though, Eric. And then I've still got the ones that you had given me. Yeah. So I will be trying them, I'm sure. But I don't remember if they were pink or white or something like that. But I've tied those, those bright green ones that almost you're like, oh, hey, maybe that's a caddis looking, or maybe it's a worm or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, never caught anything. Never on one of them. Never. Yeah. And I fished them several years ago. I fished them quite a bit. And then Pat gave me some blue ones, and those didn't work for me. So I don't know. I don't know if I have any insight into this whatsoever, other than the rig that I took from you, Eric, and fished it. So I was fishing, kind of trying to find faster water, I think, because that is what worked for you. And then the first couple of fish I think I caught came from a little bit faster water. I did notice that they were pretty heavy. Yeah. I don't know. Will, what do you think? What do you think about mop flies, and how do you fish them? Where do you fish them, I think, and what type of water, I mean? And what's the trashiest way you fished them?
Well, I love mop flies, so I just want to start with that. It's probably, it is definitely top 10 fly for me. Oh, I love fishing them mostly in off color situations. So rivers running off, you're getting a spillway coming in that's throwing some stained water in there. That's when you're probably going to have your best luck with them. But saying that, I mean, fish aren't always the brightest fish, and you throw something colorful, a large menu item in their face, and sometimes they're just going to eat it. Also in spawning situations. So especially out here, we have a lot of suckers that like to spawn, and it seems to be an amazing fly when the sucker spawn is happening. You find, you're going over a shallow area, you see a 2-foot sucker spook out of the zone, and then you see 7 of his friends, and you're like, okay, they're spawning. A lot of times the trout will stack up right behind them, just like in any spawning situation, and eat the eggs. And I've always found that mop flies resemble that egg pattern really well, especially in a yellow and a pink color. Okay. But I'm sure the same could be said for even a buffalo carp back in Tennessee too. Yeah, right.
That's what I was going to say. There's a big buffalo spawn here in the spring, and I have done a little bit different technique that we're going to talk about later. But
love it.
Yeah, behind the buffalo, and there's always a rainbow. Not as many browns, but there's always a rainbow hanging around for some reason. I think they're more opportunistic. Maybe they like bacon and eggs. I don't know. So anyway, go ahead.
Absolutely. They love a good B&E, those rainbows. But the trashiest way to fish them, Eric was with me this day. We were on our favorite section of the South Fork, and it was one of those days that pretty much everything was working, but the mop fly especially was holding true. It was an off-color situation. We were finding them in fast water, anywhere where there's fast water with a soft pocket next to it, something for those fish to hold in where they didn't have to spend as much energy. Those early season scenarios where there's less menu options, less hatches, but when they see something, they're going to snag it. And we got into a side channel where it was a little more clear. Yeah. And I don't know, we caught so many fish. We were pretty much just messing around at this point, as we're prone to doing. And I just started stripping the mop fly in and swinging it around bushes and undercuts, and one particular undercut had a nice brown, probably an 18-inch or so, and it chased it down after the swing and smashed it. We were both staring at it. strip set got him. It was a really good way to catch him. And then we kept doing it the rest of the day, and it for whatever reason worked. And I'd say that was probably the trashiest way I've fished a mop fly.
So no indicator, just straight up off the.
Yeah, I think at that point we'd taken the indicator off.
Yeah.
When we fully committed to swinging them, and and just started attacking the banks and all the undercut. And that section especially has a lot of timber, so it was a lot of fun, a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, a lot of water going by structure, stuff like that.
Exactly. Just places for those. And a lot of browns in that section because of that, and those browns can get really mean sometimes.
Yeah,
but the colors, my favorite color is pink. My brother and I both tie them usually with tungsten beads, jig heads, with a little bit of sparkle flash, then the mop fly material, and that seems to work best. I also love a tan material, same thing. Tan all the way through. I don't like a contrast of colors with mop flies, really. Put some flash in there for sure. And usually with the tans, I go a little smaller than I would a pink mop fly. I think they're eating it more as a caddis or a damselfly.
Right.
Shuck or nymph. And I've tried the chartreuse. There's the old saying, if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. But right. I find the chartreuse mop fly to be of no use, except for a couple times on the Henry's Fork where the caddis are coming off and they work. But again, it's one of those scenarios, like you said earlier, where you could throw a cigarette butt in and they're going to eat it.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's one of those scenarios, but it's love the mop fly. Can't talk highly enough of it. If it's not in your box, it should be. Yep.
I now have a whole box devoted to trash.
I love it.
I think everybody should.
Yeah.
Eric, how about you, man?
I mean, yeah, kind of just piggybacking off a lot of that, but I mean, mainly I'm fishing them in dirty water. I think sometimes if you use a smaller pink one, and if you're in a place where there's stocked trout and they're not as smart, I mean, they look at it and they're going to eat it. It's kind of just, it's opportunistic. Yeah, I mean, tying them, I'm kind of the same way. I think me and Will's patterns are slightly different. I like to get the Orvis mop fly material, because when you burn the end of it, it turns this iridescent UV color.
Yeah.
The pink material does. I'm not sure about the other colors, but yeah, pretty much tan and pink. Same thing. I use UV ice dubbing. I'm not sure it really matters what brand you use. On jig hooks, tungsten beads. I try and match the pink ones up with like a hot pink, pretty bright bead. I think that could even look, I mean, they might even think that's an egg, a bead. And then I would say the trashiest way I've fished them is I remember one time I had a huge pink mop and I had like a bunch of weight above it, a bunch of split shots, and fishing it like a full wingspan deep to the big mop, and then like a medium-sized mop, and then a worm under that.
Scummy human being.
So it was triple scum.
Love it.
I'm sure they should sell you a fishing license anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Revoke it. Yeah. Revoke it.
But yeah, see, it seems like the mops. Yeah, tan. I'm kind of same as well. I'll fish those, but definitely tend to use pink more. Yeah, chartreuse. I hate it. I don't think it's worth your time.
Yeah, somebody's out there losing their mind right now because that's probably all they fish, and they probably whack them on that.
I'm sure they whack.
I've heard in the Smokies they can be good because they think it's like a big green weenie inchworm thing.
Right. Absolutely.
But I guess I'm just not up there in the spring and summer when those guys are out all the time.
Yeah, anymore. I don't. I kind of got that. So I've seen, like a little green worm hanging out of a tree on some silk or whatever it is that they're spinning, and that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't try this little mop fly, and nothing. Yeah. Nothing, but yeah, I have heard in the Smokies they really do work, but I don't know that, so don't run out and buy a bunch and go fish them in the Smokies and write a letter that say that I said they work and they don't. So
yeah, You don't want that hate.
No, I don't want that hate. Exactly. Don't get enough. Somebody will hate this enough. So yeah. So I guess probably the trashiest way I fished them was trashiest way I fished them was taking Eric's rod and making him row the rest of the day. So that was pretty
David, that's one of my favorite things to do in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we've gotten to do that. Separate but together.
Yeah, we've got that. We've got that connection for sure.
We got that in common.
Eric, you mentioned worms and every other thing under the sun that you had rigged on that one rig a while ago.
Yeah.
Let's move on to worms, and we're liable to come back to mops in a minute, but let's move on to worms. Let's go down that same format and say, how do you fish them? What's the trashiest way you fish them? And then what colors work, and then what water types work best. Let's start there. So how do you like to fish them?
Deep, under a bobber most of the time. There's a few scenarios where you can throw a big piece of foam and then drop it under that. I don't do it that often. I think I actually stole that from Will.
You sure did.
Yeah, usually under a bobber with some weight. Depends on where you're fishing it, but you can either put a big rubber legs above it and then put the worm in the middle, then drop a nymph under it, or you can have the worm as your top fly, or you can go double or triple worm, throw different colors or all the same. And then type of water, dirty water. There are some scenarios where there's aquatic worms. They're like not earthworms.
Right.
They get pushed in. I usually tie those with red vinyl D-rib, super basic fly.
Bloodworms.
Bloodworms.
Bloodworms. Okay, yeah. Where do those come from? You talking about an aquatic worm? Not specific river, but is there a specific place that they come from? And
they're technically a small leech, is what they are. So any river that has a leech population, you're going to find some bloodworms. Most rivers don't have a high percentage of them. A couple of our rivers out here do. They're a weird little subset of worm.
Yeah.
Technically a leech, though.
I don't know if I've ever seen them around here or noticed them if they are.
And they're not very big.
They're tiny.
Yeah, they're tiny, like maybe the end section of my index finger long. They're real skinny. Yep. I've heard Will could probably tell you, but I haven't been out in Idaho in winter. I've heard they're better to use in winter.
Absolutely.
Maybe early spring. Seems to be the time to fish those. But I guess getting back to the earthworm, like the regular worms. I mean, I've been tying them all different ways now. I mean, your regular San Juan worm. I actually did a paper on the first San Juan worm that was made, and it was on the San Juan down in New Mexico, but no one actually knows who the first person who tied it was. They just know that's where it started,
right? Which
is interesting. But yeah, now you got the squirmy worms. You've got the flashy, like kind of chenille sparkle worms.
Yeah.
There's all different ways you can tie them now. I mean, and then I told you, and I started buying, and one of our guides, Heather Munn, I was like, I'm going to use bungee cord to tie worms just to make it more durable.
Yeah.
And it worked, but they're a little too stiff. They didn't really wiggle at all. And then she was like, let's just use a hair tie. And so she tied a hair tie worm, which has a little bit more flexibility to it. When it gets wet, it actually moves a lot. It just has way more durability than like a squirmy worm does. And there's certain ways to tie a squirmy worm where it's going to stay together longer, but it's hard. A lot of them slice, but squirmy worms are great, but I think the hair tie worms are way more durable.
So are you talking about like the silicone hair ties that come in all the colors that are made out of close to the same stuff?
Yeah.
Squirmy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got some black ones here. I've got all kinds of colors, but I've got a black squirmy made out of that I really think may do some damage. We'll see.
Yeah.
And then I've got, fluorescent pink and fluorescent green and all that. So
I usually like to hang in the pink, different colors of pink, and then red and then occasionally purple. And I've got some brown worms there, but I haven't had much luck on those. But trashiest way, I mean, I've thrown triple worm rigs before. So.
Good old worm hash.
But yeah, springtime's probably the best time, I think, to fish them. Water's high, it's getting up on the banks, pushing tons of worm, runoff, pushing them in. And then, yeah, if you have like agriculture and water returns from farming and all that, they're pushing worms in. That could be any time of year they're trying to water their field. So always be aware and carry some worms in your box at all times, because you never know when you're going to use them.
There's I guess every river probably has ditches between fields and stuff, and every time it rains, it washes out that ditch a little more and a little more.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a good place to fish, is right below where those ditches come out. Yeah. And that's pretty much any river in Tennessee. And you'll always find an old tire there too, because the farmers put those tires in the ditch, and then a big heavy rain comes and it'll push one or two of them out, because they're trying to save their field with that. Now there's companies out there that'll help them take care of that. But in the old days, it was, throw that tire down in there and hopefully that'll save it. I don't want to lose another. So
the old redneck spawning bed.
That's right. Yeah. You're in Tennessee, actually anywhere. I've been in Michigan and seen them. I've been out in Colorado and seen them. So they're everywhere. But
those rednecks are everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. Don't kid yourself. They are. They just talk a little different. But they all fish worms.
Absolutely. We have that in common.
How about you, Will? What have you got on the worm front?
Again, another fly that is close to my heart. All flavors, all colors. Love a two-toned worm too. A brown and pink. Don't know why it works, but it works. I think it's just half and half. And if they're looking for one or the other, they might bite it.
Yeah,
that's a great one. Squirmy material as well on that. I really like that. Just some wiggle in the water, I think, helps initiate that bite. I know Eric does not like purple worms, but I do love purple worms.
Really?
Especially in an off-color, dark day scenario. So if you got cloud cover, I think the contrast, they can see that purple, that UV spectrum that people talk about deeper in the water column. If you're throwing that purple, it's going to show up a little better. Just something for them to see. And especially when those browns are out on the prowl, I think it gets their attention, and it's something they haven't seen a lot of the times, and they're going to eat it. But again, you want worms in the water system. What Eric and I like to say when we go to our favorite section is WPH, worms per hour, in those irrigation ditches, dumping them in. The more water that's coming in, the more WPH, and the better the worm fishing is going to be. And it's a great way to catch fish, and big fish too. Eric and I love one of these small rivers that flows through our valley, and in the spring the banks cave in a lot of the time. So erosion's a big thing, and that dumps a ton of worms in. And one time we were out there, it was one of our first years at WorldCast, and we kind of got the short end of the stick and had to go to a river that we didn't think was going to be any good, just because we didn't have the permits. The other rivers were blown out. So we were dealt the hand that was given to us. And we pre-fished it the day before. It was a nasty cold day, and we could not figure out what the fish were eating. Like, we were seeing flashes down low. It was cloudy, but you could tell there was fish in there, and could not figure it out. And then Eric threw on a worm. I think he threw on actually just a giant pheasant tail, and catches a fish, brings it in, and the fish pukes up a ball of worms onto him. And we were like, okay, that's what they're eating. Perfect. Yeah. and threw worms on and caught fish all day. It was unbelievable. And from here on out, whenever that river runs out, we go down with triple worm rigs and crush fish, and it's amazing. Usually nobody's out there. So especially if you're out west, early season, you don't think a river's going to be any good. the river you want to go to is crazy crowded, go to that river that's blowing out. Try worms, especially what we like to say is soft inside corners. Again, where those fish are going to be stacked up. We'll sit on a corner for an hour and rake off a bunch of fish that are just stacked up in there eating worms. And every time you bring one in, it's puking up balls of worms onto you. And it's a great way to do it.
I tell you, the interesting thing about that whole conversation, to me, one of the most interesting things is, what if you didn't go pre-fish it? What if you just said, all right, I don't feel like going out today. I'm just gonna, you may not have ever cracked that code, or you might have cracked it 3/4 of the way through the trip and been like, crap, I should have. You got
absolutely.
You got that whole dang. I wish I had done this or that. Wished I would have pre-fished it. Wished I would have done this or that. And that.
If you don't go, you don't know.
That's right. That's exactly.
I don't know. Eric and I do a lot of fishing before trips. We get a day off. We go fish. Yeah. If you're not out there, you're not going to know what's happening. And you can get all the beta in the world from anybody else, but if you're not the one out there collecting that information, you're not going to know exactly what's happening.
Yeah, because right.
As fishermen, we're notorious for lying to people about going to a spot.
I don't know what's
not
about.
Actually happening. Exactly.
I'm not sure what you're saying there.
Yeah. all fishermen are truth tellers, correct?
Right. I think that's pretty good information right there. I don't know how many folks I've talked to that went out west early and came back and said, we couldn't fish anywhere because it was blown out. And, we tried a little side stream, but that wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And, or it's dirty and, we just didn't catch anything. And, it's a boat ride and all that. I mean, y'all have heard all that stuff too, probably, but
absolutely.
If you're going early in the year, it does seem like you have a lot better chance of having, large runoff, stained water, all that stuff that we don't like.
Definitely.
If you're a dry fly purist, just stay home all spring.
Yeah, right.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Maybe catch the occasional blue wing hatch, but that's about it.
Yeah, right.
You like to catch fish, bring a worm box and
bring a worm box.
Catch plenty.
Bring me a few mop flies and we'll be best friends.
That's right. That's right. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to next. And we could always come back if you think of something that might help us, our listeners, understand what you're doing out there, or give them a new idea. We can always come back and circle back around and hit up on the mops and worms. But I want to talk about eggs just a minute. And I've fished them several different ways. I have fished the gummy eggs tied onto a hook. I fished those. I've fished the yarn eggs, and I've pinned eggs. And I think that I like the pinning the best. It just, you pin it with about, maybe an inch or two down to the hook. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, just look up pinning eggs on YouTube, and trust me, there's hours worth of stuff there to listen to. And I've got a box in my box, and I haven't pulled it out this year at all. Well, yeah, last year I guess I didn't pull it out at all. But the year before I did a couple of times and had some pretty good luck on it, and done some trips out to East Tennessee and done well, and just fishing them downstream of spawning fish, to where they're dropping eggs and it's floating down. That works pretty well. You'd be surprised. You could throw it in middle of summer sometimes, and they're just like, oh, an egg. Oh, I need that. Fished it behind the buffalo spawn before. That seems to work pretty well. When the buffalo get in the river, I mean, you can start spawning. You can get those one or two ways. You can fish for the buffalo with for me, a black and silver flashy clouser works best. But if you move on down a little bit and start getting into the trout, then you switch over to an egg of whatever color. You just have to figure out what color they are as close as you can get to your river, to whatever they're letting loose there to go down to generally to the rainbow. That's generally what it seems like I've caught more on eggs, is maybe they like, like I said a while ago, maybe they just like bacon eggs. I don't know, but I know I do. We used to, whenever I would go fish with my grandparents, we would catch brim and, all kinds of different stuff, but crappie and brim were probably pretty much. But my grandfather would save the eggs, and we would eat caviar for breakfast with frog legs. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man, it's good. It tastes like chicken. But it's kind of like frog legs and eggs. Was really good. Anyway.
And it rhymes.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Somebody needs to write a country song, Frog Legs and Eggs.
Oh my goodness. Missed opportunity.
Yeah. So Will, what do you think about eggs?
So especially out here, like I was saying earlier, sucker spawn, lots of suckers in our rivers, they're a native species. People view them as a trash fish, but that trash fish produces a lot of protein for our game fish, and those fish will stack up behind them. I love fishing for that. But like you said, even in the high of summer, a fish sees that. It's pure protein floating by. They're probably going to come eat it. Right now, we have a lot of whitefish, especially on the South Fork and the Henry's Fork, up where we fish. I think the last count was like there's 20,000 whitefish per mile on the South Fork of the Snake, which is just unbelievable. And you believe it, if you're sitting above them and looking at all of them every day, which is what Eric and I do, and trying to get past the onslaught of whitefish that want to eat everything. But, they start spawning, and you catch one of them, you pick it up, and it's just spewing eggs, and these tiny, tiny little eggs. So going smaller, what I like to use is, it's not an egg pattern, it's a hothead pheasant tail, even for the people that I'm sure they have tuned out at this point, but the people that don't love scummy flies, you can disguise it with a pheasant tail behind it and put that orange bead on the front, and that works as an egg. And then you can tell yourself, oh, they were eating little bluewing nymphs. They sure weren't. They were eating eggs. And you can lie to yourself, but that's fine. And but they're fantastic. I love any color egg. I feel like works. Orange is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
That's usually what I start out with. I think that closer resembles any fish in the system's egg. But chartreuse, like we were talking about earlier, my second choice is a chartreuse egg. I think that fish see that. I think it's a lot of a shape too, and something flashy that gets their attention, and they're going to come eat it. So we fish a lot below the dam, and that's where eggs reign supreme. Is any dam, fish seem to love spawning around dams, and that's a great way to do it. The disco egg is another favorite, just a hodgepodge of different colors.
Mm-hmm.
You got chartreuse, pink, orange, and sometimes yellow all mixed together, and that's a fun one to use. And then I found another one in a lovely town called Pinedale that is a few miles from Victor, and it is the scummiest egg I have ever seen in my life. It is an epoxied egg. It's orange, and it looks just like a roe sack that a spin fisherman would use, and it has an extension, like an articulation, that has another spawning sack behind it, and they sell that in a fly shop, and it brings my heart great joy that people are buying those and using those. So but yeah, love eggs. I think they're effective, especially during spawning seasons. But again, nothing else working on the river, you're scratching your head, throw an egg on. You're not guaranteed to get a bite, but you're giving yourself a fighting chance.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How about you, Eric? What have you got on egg?
Yeah, I'm similar to Will. I don't fish as many eggs, but I think it's mainly because I haven't been out there when a lot of the spawns are going on. So I'm sure I will get into it a lot more.
Yeah, are you going back? You're going back in a minute, aren't you?
Yeah. I'll be moving to Victor in May full time.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I'll be there probably forever.
Yeah. So you can catch
Hooray.
it.
Yeah.
Catch the egg hatch.
But yeah, I also
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sort of Will with the sucker spawn, fishing eggs behind the spawning fish, and that's one more thing is. So I feel like a lot of people look down on fishing eggs because they're like, oh, well, you're just raking the reds and you're fishing eggs and side swiping all these fish. And it's, it's just not true. If you're anchored up behind the red and getting all the fish that are just right behind them and munching. Why would you not do that?
Right, they're all sitting there for a reason.
Yeah,
exactly.
It literally is an egg hatch if you look at it that way.
And there are people that they go in and destroy reds and sideswipe fish. Yeah. And that's awful. But I think people that look down,
special place in hell for those people.
I think people that fish eggs kind of sometimes get unintentionally looped into that group of, oh, you just fish reds. And it's like, no, I don't. I'm smart and I fish behind it and catch all the big fish that are gaining a pound in weight every day.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they do. There is some protein in there. Will is right.
Yeah.
So the one thing. So here's an egg story. So back when I lived in Knoxville, I went with my buddy Pat. Everybody knows he's the guy that pretty much got me on the river and got me to love fly fishing. He spin fished quite a bit. He had a bay boat, so he spin fished quite a bit out of it. But he's a heck of a mountain stream fisherman, and he's a heck of a tailwater fisherman. We went up to the Clinch one day, and we were fishing below the Weir Dam, and Pat's up there, and he was notorious for just trying stuff, just whatever. So he had his boat parked out back, and he found like this little canister of salmon eggs that he had just laid on the boat, and it stayed there most of the summer. It was somewhere on the boat most of the summer. So as we were loading up, he just grabbed that thing of salmon eggs and threw it in his pocket. And so we take off and we go to the Clinch, and he's fishing, and he's got this very big brown on for that river. It's pretty dang big, and we were fishing right below the weir. So very similar to what you were saying, Will, is the spawning fish like to get there, but I don't know that it was still winter time, so I'm pretty sure that we weren't fishing for anything spawning. But he catches this fish and releases it, and I don't know if y'all have been to the Weir Dam on the Clinch or not, but it's got these round pipes underneath that the water comes up, and that fish went right back in that pipe.
Whoa!
Yeah, just went straight up in it. So anyway, I was standing there with him, and we were talking about it. This dude comes walking across the weir, and he'd been watching the whole thing unfold. And he says, "Hey man, what'd you catch that on?" And Pat pulls out this canister of real salmon eggs.
Yes.
He goes, "This." And the guy was just like, it just crushed him. The dude was like, "Oh no."
What have you done?
Yeah, right. Oh no, he had his fly rod there. I mean, he was casting them. I mean, have you ever tried to cast a salmon egg with a fly rod, a real one?
It's rough,
almost impossible. I tried it after that. I was like, well, crap, I'm going to try this. If Pat does it, I can do it. Yeah, I couldn't get it the eggs to stay on. I mean, I put 15 on one little hook and cast it out one time. They'd all be flying through the air, chumming. But his secret was to leave them on the boat, leave them out in the sun, and it should make them really hard. That was the only way he could get them to stay on. I mean, that takes some real thought,
thinking.
Yeah, it is. It's not very pure, as far as fly fishing goes. But maybe if you put it under a dry fly or something, it'd have been a little more palatable for that guy.
Yeah, don't worry. We're fishing them under parachute Adam.
Right.
It's
right.
okay.
It's legal, right? But anyway, I haven't tried to cast the salmon. I tried one day after that, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get it to stay on. But he told me later what the secret was, but I still haven't tried it. Maybe whenever I get old and I'm ready to kick off, I'll do it and just see if I can't make one stick. Maybe I'll be a little smoother then too.
I love that. Yeah, you can try I forgot to mention, my favorite scummy tactic for eggs is my stoplight rig with a red egg on top, a yellow egg in the middle, and a green egg on the bottom. And that's about as scummy as it gets on the egg rigs.
That's pretty bad. Pretty bad. So which one's catching the most? One on the bottom?
See, yeah, and it's that chartreuse,
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if it's because it's the anchor fly, and it's getting down lowest, but it just seems to grab the most fish. But and I guess fish like to go, so they're going to grab that green egg.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, that's the theory anyway. Isn't there?
Exactly.
Is there another country with a stoplight that's different color? Maybe we could try them.
Oh,
maybe England's got a different color stoplight or something.
Yeah,
we need to check that out. We
need some research on that one.
We need to check the Google on that one and see what the Google says.
I'm going to Google that one right now.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about dirty hybrid flies.
Yes.
Let's start with Will. What's your dirtiest hybrid fly?
So my favorite dirty hybrid goes back to our first topic, which is mop flies. It also combines it with our middle topic, which was the worms, and that is a mop worm.
Mop worm.
I think it most closely resembles a night crawler. So the length and dense shape of a night crawler is all encompassed into a mop worm. They are, like you said with that salmon egg, they are the worst thing in the world to cast. It's like casting a wet sock. You know, it's just rough, especially below an indicator. But, you know, you can see that thing about 7 feet under the surface. So, you know, if you enjoy sight fishing, the mop worm is for you.
The mop worm.
The mop worm. And that is a closely guarded secret that is now out to the world.
Oh, no.
You're welcome, everybody.
Heard it here first.
Exactly. The best place to shop for that material is gas stations, Michael's, and Bed Bath & Beyond. You cannot get it in your traditional fly shop. They will laugh in your face if you ask for a mop worm or the material that it takes to tie with it. It's usually yarn, but it's great. It's a great fly. You're going to have to sink that too. I mean, you want heavy lead on that hook shank. You want a tungsten bead on the front because it's going to take some mustard to get that thing low. And that's where you want it, is you want it in that low column. Like I was talking about earlier with the UV, you want it in that deep dark zone where they're looking more for shape, not color. But as Eric and I saw when we fished it a few times, fish will eat it on the drop. I mean, they see that.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
That protein packed meal, and they're going to get it. And, you know, you got slack in your line. You're trying to pick it up as quick as you can as you see that fish eat it. But sometimes it doesn't work. Another one of my favorites, this goes into hybrid flies, is I know people in the Southeast love their trout magnets. You can stick a trout magnet on the back of a jig hook, you know, tie a little bit of dubbing in there, and you can call that a fly. If you have no morals, such as myself, and just love to catch fish, that's a good way to do it.
I got it. Yeah. I'll see y'all later.
Yep. I'll see you later. We'll take over from here. We fully pirated this podcast. No, it's mean. You know, it's a soft plastic with a split tail. As I was telling David earlier, I'm going ice fishing tomorrow. I tie a lot of heavy jigs with mop flies and those trout magnets for fish underneath the ice, and they are super effective. You know, again, if you don't have morals, go for it.
You know,
it's a lot of fun.
I cut one of those out of the tree the other day.
Nice.
Wasn't that what was on that? I'll be dang. Somebody's fishing that down there.
Yeah.
That was what was on that Euro rig that we cut out of the tree the other day, wasn't it? That's exactly what it was.
Lovely.
It had the multicolored leader.
Yeah. It had the leader and everything on it.
Yeah. Wow. Those scummy Euro nymphers.
Yeah,
they'll put anything on the end of their line. But
so you're a Euro nymph a lot, Will?
I actually have Euro nymph a decent amount. I bought myself, you know, a Redington Hydrogen 3-way 10-foot.
Yeah.
And the only issue out here is, you know, I see people that catch a bunch of trout on it, but I just find it to be whitefish bait on the rivers where I am.
Oh yeah.
And that's my only issue with it. Not to say I haven't caught some nice trout on it, but there's so many whitefish on some of these rivers that, you know, those flies are perfect whitefish bait.
Yeah,
so
I can see that happening there. And I had a guy a couple of years ago that I said, "You want to try Euro fishing?" He said, "Yeah, sure." And he was in the back of the boat, so he tosses it out there, catches a couple of fun. You know, you go through the whole thing. That was a bite. No, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. That was a bite. No, that was a bite. No, it wasn't. Yeah, that was a bite. Finally, they catch a couple fish, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that was a bite."
Yeah.
The rod's bouncing up. That's a bite. So anyway, we left that. We were going through some pretty quick water, and I just fished him through there. And I was like, "All right, you want to get this bobber rig out?" I think it's what we were throwing. And he's like, "No, I want to keep doing this." I said, "Well, you know, we're out of water. I'll just throw it out there to the side." He just threw it out of the side as we were floating down, and he smoked them all day.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and just holding it out to the side, maybe 10 foot out from the boat. He's more fishing behind us than he was anything because he was pretty lazy. But yeah,
nice.
Yeah, he outfished his buddy a bunch. But
That's
then I
amazing.
go back and somebody else wanted to try it. They didn't catch anything. So who knows? I don't know. I don't understand how I know about that. But yeah, he was a happy camper when he got done. I was like, oh, you did. I fished you for 9 miles, dude. You didn't do anything but hold a rod. His buddy's up here learning, and you're just back there being lazy,
just trolling.
Yeah, it's basically what we were doing with him.
Yeah,
while his buddy was picking apart fish off of rocks and banks and logs and stuff. But
yeah,
he outfished him. But
that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. How about you, Eric? Let's hear your dirty hybrid. I want to circle back around too on something that So go ahead, Eric.
Oh, this one it's a Zertle. So
I know that one.
So it's a rubber legs with a rabbit strip tied into the back. So it's dirty because like it doesn't really look like much, but I don't know. There's different sizes. There's a big one, so you're like pretty much you're gonna put it under an indicator. So you're like it's kind of nymphing with a streamer. And then there's a smaller one too. But I mean, it kind of looks like a crayfish. It kind of looks like a bait fish. It's really good in dirty water. I fish them a lot in the springtime on the South Fork on the water side. Just a big profile. They're not super heavy like a streamer, so they're a little bit easier to get out there if you're using an indicator. You will want to fish a lot of weight above it though they don't sink super fast. But yeah, that's probably one of my favorite hybrid, like dirty. It's right on the border of dirty and clean.
That's what I was thinking. It's kind of like blurring the line a little bit.
Yeah. And not a ton of people fish them. A few guys that do. And then another one is the mopstone.
The mopstone.
Okay.
It's a rubber legs, but instead of the end of it just being the rest of the chenille, the back end of the fly is a mop fly material.
It is.
And first person that my boss, Mike Dawkins, gave me one, and because he knows I love fishing dirty flies, and it worked. It worked. I tied a couple more. I think I ran out eventually. They're not super easy to tie, but they are effective. I don't think they're any better than regular rubber legs, but it's a fun, good looking fly to use. And then there's the egg sucking rubber, the egg sucking rubber legs.
Egg sucking rubber legs. Okay.
It's just a regular rubber legs. There's a bright orange bead at the top of it. So it's like an egg sucking leech, but it's a rubber legs.
Okay.
And those also fish those in springtime. Fish those behind reds as well. Because then that gives you the egg fly as well as they'll be like, oh, it's an egg, or the fish behind it's like, oh, it's a rubber leg.
So it's like steak and eggs.
Yeah, it's
I must be hungry.
It's a little complicated.
The bacon and eggs also. The worm with an egg in the middle of it. One of my favorites.
Yeah. The frog leg and eggs.
Frog leg and eggs.
I think we're coming to something here. That could be what that is the frog legs and eggs pattern.
Yep.
Oh, that could be good.
Eric, you should also tell people about your scummiest worm of all time.
Which one was that?
Well, hang on now. Hold on a second.
The scented one.
Oh no.
Yeah, those I won't give too much info on that because there are some guides that live and die by that thing.
Are they really?
Absolutely.
I'm not. I have some. I have fished them before. I've never guided with them. I don't think I have any clients who would want to fish those things.
That's the crack in case of emergencies fly.
But there is the right way to fish them where it's not a fly. You're just pulling them out of the pack and sticking them on a worm hook so they stay in place. You can get them onto a jig hook and tie them on, which I've done with a few of them, but I won't give away the best. There's one company that
there sure is
makes the best ones. And I don't think I can give that away. It might piss some people off, but There's one coming.
Wait.
I'll give away the color and the scent. It's a pink color, but it's shrimp scent. It's a shrimp
scent.
It's
they're like bubblegum pink. That's it.
Yeah,
bubblegum pink shrimp scent. It's about they're pretty big. I mean, it's like a soft plastic worm, pretty much. I tried it with regular power bait worms that were scented. They don't work.
Really?
I don't. I mean, I'm sure people catch fish on power bait worms, but I didn't. But yeah, there's this one company.
Is it a fly fishing company that makes it?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
okay.
Not a chance.
That's what I was thinking. That's like, wow.
It is spin fishing.
That's almost fishing filthy.
Yeah, if you tie
downright filthy, dude. Downright filthy.
If you tie them onto a hook, and maybe put some dubbing on it, that might make you feel
No,
better.
It wouldn't.
And
it makes me feel better, David. It makes me feel better.
No.
There are some people that love that thing. By God, it works. But
it'll catch a 30-inch brown on the South Park. That's for sure.
I don't.
Oh my gosh.
I won't guide with that ever. It's not fly fishing.
No, that is not. We need to do a what is fly fishing episode. We need to do that. What is fly fishing? That is not. I'm sorry, it's just not.
So it's an intervention is what that is.
Yeah, that's like talking about crack the case in case of emergency. That's like DEFCON 10.
Yeah.
Give me the code. Get somebody in here with the codes.
Yeah.
The nuclear option or whatever it's called. Yeah. I think I drew the line right there.
Yeah.
Your line was in the sand.
Yeah, I think it was. Y'all's a little bit blurry, but that was Eric's past blurry.
I can loop back around to so one of the times I threw.
I'm afraid for you to loop back around now.
I want to see it.
I'm not sure that we can stand.
So I haven't tried. It just got me thinking. I was like, well, what if I did this? I haven't tried this, but I have tried it with. So, if you're a streamer junkie, you love throwing huge, giant streamers for trout or whatever else. I'm sure bass.
Oh goodness!
Eat them, but if I've done this before, where you'll throw a sex dungeoner and your articulated streamer of your choice and tie about 1.5 to 2 feet behind your streamer and tie like a big like San Juan worm or any of those worms we talked about earlier behind it.
Yeah.
And that's that's just a classic is a worm chasing a bait fish, right? It happens all the time.
Happens all day,
man. But for some reason, I don't know why, but those fish, I think they see that streamer, maybe they don't want to eat the streamer and they're like, oh, a worm, and they come in, they just hammer the worm. They don't give a crap about the streamer. They're just like, oh, take the worm.
It's super effective.
Yeah, it doesn't happen every time. There's some days where it's like, this is the way we need to fish.
Okay,
absolutely.
So my reaching theory there would be that they think that the streamer just ate something, and that worm is a piece of something they ate. How do you like that?
Regurgitate.
Yeah, regurgitation.
I like it.
It's the regurgitation fly.
Yeah.
Maybe we can make a streamer and tie like worms off the side of it. All the other fish come up and try to bite the worm off the
earrings.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
The worm earringed streamer.
Yeah. Right.
Kelly Gallup is chomping at the bits.
Yeah. It has to be articulated, of course.
It has to be.
Actually, it should be a game changer.
Give him 3. Yeah. Some articulation.
Yes. Yep. Articulated game changer earring fly.
Yeah, we just lost our last listener.
Yep, they gone.
Left.
Oh yeah, I think dang, the whole scented thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I did draw the line right there. I think.
Yeah, it is.
I have them because I believed in it for a minute. Then I gave it some deep thought, and I cried myself to sleep. And woke up the next day, and I was like, that's not fly fishing.
So also a big thing is Eric lived at my house, and he kept his shrimp scented worms in my house in his room. And so my house started to smell of dead shrimp, which was a no-go. So they were so bad.
Even when you have
I'm sure Sonny appreciated all of that.
Yeah, my wife's the same, but she could not stand that.
See, he crossed the line with her too, didn't he?
Absolutely. Jumped over that line.
Albeit for different reasons.
Absolutely.
Oh, hey, I want to go back to what was that? The mop worm? The worm mop?
Mop worm, absolutely.
The mop worm. All right, let's go through, because I don't know that I've followed enough to know how to tie one, and I'm sure somebody out there wants to know, how do we tie a mop worm, and where do we get the materials for it?
So the best place I've seen is Michael's. So what you're looking for is, I don't know how many people listening enjoy crocheting or knitting quilts.
Well, Will, there's 3 people listening. 4 counting us.
I hope at least 25% of those are really good knitters. Right. So usually it's in the back left section of the Michael's, which it's off tangent. If you go to Michael's has amazing fly tying material, whether it be foam, feathers, just different knickknacks that you can actually tie into flies. Eric and I, since we were kids, have used to beg our mother to go to Michael's. And she would take us, and we would get all the different materials to tie all sorts of flies.
Dirt cheap, and you get
a
ton of it.
And quality material too, especially foam. The foam from Michael's is amazing.
Yeah, I've got some foam over there.
Absolutely. So if you look up a mop material on like Orvis's website, they sell it. Try and mimic that as best as possible, but with a giant ball of yarn. They make it super thick. I'd say 1/2 inch, 1/4 thick, however thick you want them to be. And then cutting them to the length that you desire, and then tying them like any other squirmy worm or anything like that. You want super thick thread. Oh, what would you say, Eric? 200.
I'd say at least 140, probably.
At least 140 denier.
Probably 210.
Okay.
I like
absolutely.
Okay.
Super heavy thread. And again, tie in that lead, put the tungsten bead on first. I've even used cone head streamer heads for it that are tungsten. Those seem to work well, just so you can put them on a bigger hook as well. Yeah, and then burn the ends, just like Eric was saying with his mop flies. You want to burn those ends just so it doesn't unravel, because that material is not made to be cut necessarily. It's made to be, again, knitted into a quilt.
Not casted through the air.
And then wet and then dry and then wet and then dry. But they're super durable. The only issue I've seen with the longer length is foot in the mouth, that material getting back into the hook and hooking the hook, and then you got to untie it. It's all unraveled. But again, you can see it 10 feet down under the water column. So if it's fouled up, you can see that it's fouled up.
Yeah. You can watch it fall and make your mind up whether you need to bring it back in or not.
Exactly. It's a very good fly for those dirty conditions. I do not throw those flies unless that water is stained like sweet tea in the back of the box, specifically for those scenarios. But it has caught some amazing fish.
I need to see a picture of one. I'm sure I can find it on YouTube.
I'll send it to you right after this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you see those bass that Eric's been catching?
He's being rude and sending it to me while I'm working in the ski shop, and I'm daydreaming about fly fishing for bass in Alabama. It's just rude, but
nice weather too down there.
I told him.
Although we did get some flurries today. It did not stick though.
Oh, there's like 4 inches here.
Yeah, people. Yeah. We got that same. The storm was crazy. It was like came up the Gulf and then just kind of around.
Yeah.
We didn't get any accumulation, but it never snows down here.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's not gonna snow usually down that far.
Fishing. Will used to do that to me though when I was in class here at Auburn.
The
big trout.
The tides have turned.
Payback.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, if you can send me a picture of that worm mop, I'll put it out there. So
Absolutely.
the episode,
Absolutely.
that way these folks can see it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't know what to ask you for, Eric, because you have crossed the scented line.
Yeah.
Is Eric not allowed on podcasts anymore?
I don't know what we're going to do with him. I brought the bass up so that we could probably maybe try to repair his reputation.
Yeah.
There we go.
Soiled.
I
Yeah.
like that.
And I could get like Drew or Craig on it too, one of the other guides down here.
Yeah.
Yes, yesterday was awesome.
Was it?
Like
those look like some nice fats.
Yeah, like we caught a good amount of fish. We caught some big ones, which was sweet.
So you're getting it dialed in down there now.
Yeah. I mean, winter is usually, the quality's better. You don't catch as many. But I think it was good because that cold front coming in today. Yeah, I think they were just like, we got to eat now.
right.
Yeah.
Never gonna get to eat again.
Yeah.
Well, anything else y'all can think of that you wanted to add before we wrap this thing up?
First rule about scummy flies is don't talk about scummy flies.
Yep.
Unless you're on a podcast. They're a great way to catch fish. As much as we were joking around, they are highly effective flies.
Oh, yeah.
Highly, highly effective. And I think they have a home in anybody's fly box. Yeah. They're fantastic.
What about you, Eric? Anything else to add there?
I will say, if you are a dry fly only, first of all, you suck, and don't listen to this podcast because you'll probably have a heart attack and die. Yeah,
probably. I think the thing that I would say about it is just to stay on the technical front. And you're right. If somebody's listening to it and they're a dry fly aficionado, they probably
they're long gone.
Cardiac arrest or long gone, and they're on a message board talking about all of us. But I would say that the thing that I think is maybe a theme here for fishing them is kind of stained water. That was brought up quite a bit. Maybe a little quicker water. I brought that up, I think, in the beginning. But I mean, if you can get on clear water, really nice clear water, I don't know that you really have to venture over to the dirty side.
Yeah.
I mean,
the only thing I'd say is when Eric brought up those bloodworms, I mean, I use those bloodworms year round.
Do you really?
So if you find a river that has bloodworms in it, they are, I think, fish just like midges.
Uh-huh.
They're a little bigger snack than a midge is. You can really look for them, so you can tell if your river has them. Look on the gill plates of fish.
Uh-huh.
They'll be hanging off the back of the gill plates. They just look like a little long midge. They're tiny.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you see fish with those, I mean, toss them. It means they're eating them most likely. They're good protein sources. So
haven't thought of that. That's good. See, good tip right at the end. If you hung around.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. Laid out some knowledge right there.
Yeah. I'll say one more clear water scenario would be.
This doesn't involve any scented
stuff.
I
know.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Clear water scenario.
Yeah. I would say out west, we don't really have a ton of stocking of fish. Most of the river systems are producing on their own. They're all wild or native. But back in the southeast, a lot of the rivers are stocked. If it's a fresh stocking, you're there like a day or two after they're stocked before the fish settle in and start eating those regular bugs like the midges and the mayflies and stuff.
Yeah.
I would chuck a worm out there. Those hatchery fish are not going to be super smart the first day or two, and a worm, they're going to be like, "Oh, a worm."
A worm. Look at that. Yeah. I tell you that.
Or a mop fly.
Yeah, right.
Mop up the competition.
Not a chartreuse, I can tell you that.
Not a chartreuse.
Even out west, the fish are not for the most part stocked, but we're still fishing a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
My box, I've been out there and changed my box all up, and thankfully threw a couple of flies that I normally use here, and that's what I caught the fish on. Yeah. So I don't think you don't have to get wild. It's nice to tune into a hatch and all that, and say that you fished this hatch and dialed it in, and smoked them that day with a certain fly. But for the most part, I don't think I think the fish are, for the most part, I think they have not intelligence. I think they just have survival instincts, which that's different. There's a couple of different things. We try to assign intelligence to them, but I don't think they're quite, I don't think they have quite the IQ we want to give them whenever we're talking to our buddies about how many fish and how big they were.
Yeah.
I think that's more for us.
Especially when you get skunked, you're like, oh, they're so smart today.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Couldn't fool them.
Yeah, they must have had class last night or something.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I can
PhDs.
remember. I can remember one scenario where I hadn't fished a worm in. This was probably like August. I hadn't fished a worm in a while. And, we were sitting on this riffle. We could see this fish like super shallow, like 2 feet maybe, and we're running through all these flies of what's coming off and like nothing's working. And then finally I'm like, all right, let's put a worm on. First cast, boom, he eats it. I'm like, why did he eat that? There's like probably no worms coming out. There might be some, but that fish
sitting in land.
Yeah, he'd obviously seen a worm before. So it's like you never know, like all like different scenarios, try a worm for a little bit, if you don't get it eat relatively soon, take it off, but you never know. Like big fish love big food. So
they sure do.
I believe that. Well, let's close this thing out, y'all. If you find value in the podcast, share this episode, if you dare, with your friends. Drop by the Southeastern Fly store and explore the merch that fuels the Southeastern Fly podcast. Remember, we still have a few coaching session time slots available. Benefits of that can also be found at the store. Who were our guests today on this Wisdom from the Guides episode? First guest, a guy who grew up in Middle Tennessee and fished here, moved to Upper East Tennessee and fished there, currently resides in Victor, Idaho. He's been guiding full-time for 5 years. He's now in his 8th guiding season, and he's working with World Class. Will Ezell, thanks for coming out, man. I really appreciate you hopping on here, and I hope you have fun ice fishing tomorrow.
David, thank you so much. I plan to. I'm going to throw some mop flies.
Throw some mop flies at them. Yeah, let me know if that worked.
Absolutely.
Our second guest followed kind of the same path. Grew up in Middle Tennessee and fished here. Moved to Upper East Tennessee and fished there. Currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, and come to Victor, Idaho full-time soon to guide with WorldCast as well. Now he's in his 7th season. Eric, thanks for coming back to the podcast, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I don't know what we're going to do with you, but yeah. And I don't know about leaving a shrimp fly in a bedroom.
It's just rude. It's rude to your house.
It was just amazing. It's even when they were closed.
Even when they're closed,
they still stink. Oh, that's nasty. Well, you just listened to Wisdom from the Guides episode, Fishin' Dirty on Southeastern Fly. See you next time. guys.
Dude, that was a ton of fun.
That was fun. Yeah. Hopefully everything went well on it. I believe it did.